Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my wrap-up and stats and favorites of August 2020. So August has been fantastic. This month is tied pretty much with my strongest month ever, which I think was April of this year. I read 68 books, and I mean there's a day left of the month, so I'm sure I'll end up having read like 70 books this month, which is what I read back then, but those will get moved into the next month because this is the day that it's time to film, and so I have all my stats ready for those 68 books that I read. So one thing I want to put at the front of this, because I got a couple sassy people last month who, you know, maybe they're new to my channel, so I'm not calling anybody out or saying anything, but I have changed how I do wrap-ups on this channel because, as you can see, I read large quantities of books, and pretty much back in February of this year, I realized that I could no longer do a wrap-up where I put all the books of the month into one, and then eventually I couldn't even do 2 a month because there was still 30 to 40 books that I was talking about, and I don't mind long wrap-ups. I know some of you still, you know, my videos are all between 20 and 50 minutes on this channel. You all are so great and watch them, which humbles me, of course. However, just for my own sanity and to get to explain the books to the level that I want to, because I'm a channel that I put in not full details or full spoilers, but I like to give you a more rounded idea of the books that I recommend to you, so that you know more about the book than just what trope it is or just what star rating it is. And so because of that, my weekly wrap-ups, which go up every Sunday, they have all the books I've read that week, which is between 10 and 15 books every week that I'm reading. And so if you check out those videos, they're in my playlist called 2020 Reading Vlogs. I need to rename that playlist to something else, but I always have it attached at the end of these. You can go and see every single book I've read and I talk about it. But in these, I just go over what my stats are, what genres my books were in, and then I tell you the top 5 to 8 books that I read that month, the ones that I really want you to check out. But as you're about to see, I have many 5-star books every month because I am a lover of romance and a lover of these kind of stories, and I rate them very highly. And so there's more than just these 6 books that I recommend to you. So if you want to know every book I've read this month, because I'm only going to talk about a couple of them today, please check out that playlist, and I would talk about every book that passes my eyes, okay? But you don't need to comment on this one. Please tell me every book you've read, because I'm not going to. I'm not going to list all 68 of those books in this video. But you can go watch the other 4 videos of the month where I go into detail about them all, okay? Enough of that. Let's go ahead and dive into my stats, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So a couple things on the front end of this. In the month of August, I participated in the Summer Fling Readathon. This was created and kind of executed by my friend Sarah over at Steeped in Books, and she asked some of us on our, Booktube romance crew to co-host this with her. I was someone who I tried to do that. I was in most of the live shows for it, which are, on varying different people's channels, as well as on my Instagram. I tried to do the Summer Fling scavenger hunt as best as I could. I think I did about 20 out of the 30 days I was able to do. So that was really fun. Some of them were just hard and I couldn't find them, but you can check out my Instagram. Links are always down below in my link tree there. And that was really fun, and I feel like my Instagram grew quite a bit this month because of that scavenger hunt, so that was really fun. But for this, we had 12 prompts, and this was the board that I made. There's a really pretty version of the board here. I ended up completing 11 out of the 12 prompts, and I, of course, doubled up on some of them. The only one I didn't get to is I didn't end up reading that category romance. I have a few purchased, including some like classic ones that I got in my book box or ones I found at bookstores, but I just wasn't in the mood for them, so that is the one that I didn't get to. But this was really, really fun. I had a great time on the live shows. It was fun having different people's perspectives on romance, because romance means things to lots of different people, and the different levels of it are important at different levels to people. So let's go ahead and dive into this. So let's start with the star ratings of this month. So again, there were 68 books. Here's my pretty little, I'll put up my pretty little thing here. I had nothing below a 3-star. I generally don't. Some of these I may have rounded up just a little bit, but there was nothing I felt was below a 3-star for me, because I generally don't continue if it is, unless it's an arc or something. So I had 5 3-stars, 6 3.5 stars, 21 4-stars, 9 4.5 stars, and 26 5-stars. So, man, it was fun. I love reading romance. It makes me so happy. Then the like how I read those books was, there was, again, 68 books. There was 23,803 pages, which is the most pages I've read in a month. Even though I've read more books than this, these were, quite a them were significantly bigger. I had quite a few chunkers. Here's just a couple of my physical ones. But I also read quite a few T.L. Swan books, and hers are pretty big. So there was that many, and then that is about 768 pages per day. Woofda. Looking at my Bookly app, which I'm actually getting kind of annoyed with Bookly because it needs an update real bad. It keeps dying every time I open it on my phone, so I'm not too pleased with that. But there was a couple days this month where I had 10 plus hours of reading per day. So that kind of shows you where that comes from. I had a couple days of traveling where I listened to quite a few audiobooks, so there's that. Then there was 13 physical books, 39 ebooks. This is either ebook or Kindle Unlimited. I mean, they're all ebook. There was 2 arcs that I read, and then 20 of these books were on audio. You'll see if you do the math there that I do double up on a few. You'll see Dark Notes and Slave to Sensation and Beast of Bestwick. I was reading both the physical and listening to the Audible. So I like to do that when I have the book, or if a book that's on my TBR, if I find it on Audible Escape, I'll do that quite often just because I enjoy that dual reading experience quite a lot. So then the genres of these books, this was really fun. So my genres for this, I had 6 historical romance, so quite a bit less than the month before. I believe I had 12 or 13 that I read last month, but I was making my way through the Victorian Rebels, so there was quite a few of those. Then I had 10 paranormal romance, most of those being, I think that exclusively being Nailani Singh series, because I read all those this month. Then there was 26 contemporary, 21 erotic, 2 fantasy romance. All of these are romance. And then 3 romantic suspense. In regards to those romantic suspense too, those were both, I feel like they could have been considered contemporary over that, but I actually enjoyed the suspense elements in those couple. So I wanted to put them in romantic suspense just to denote that there was more than just sex as the plot. More than just the relationship as a plot, and I felt like it was good, because there's quite a few times where you have an erotic novel or a contemporary romance novel and it's going along one track, and then all of a sudden the author interjects some suspense elements that came out of nowhere, and you're just like, what's going on with this? But in these cases, I felt like it worked with the story, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff here. This time I have 6 books that I want to mention. This is always so hard. This is again why I really encourage you to be watching my weekly wrap-ups, because as you can see, I only had 11 books that were below a 4-star this month. And so I pretty much gush about everything. And it was very difficult to pick favorites. One thing I will say, I have an entire reading vlog for Midnight Sun. I consider that in one of my top reads I read this month. So if you want to know my in-detail thoughts about that, please check that out. But yeah, let's go ahead. I want to start with Slave to Sensation, which, as I was saying, I've read 10 of the books in this series so far. I wouldn't 100% say this is my favorite one. But I wanted to talk about this one because it was 5-star. I absolutely loved it. I'm not saying it's not a wonderful start to a series. It's just, you know how it goes. It takes a while till the author hits their stride, and there's a couple of the couples that are bomb for me. But Sasha and Lucas are probably in the top 3 couples I've read so far, so it's fine. And I wanted to bring this one up as something that I bring up quite often when I talk about romance. I'm gonna put this back again. Is that I very much enjoy physical touch elements when they are brought into a story. My love language is physical touch. I communicate my love and receive love through physical touch of people that I care about, and not just in a romantic way. I don't have a romantic partner in my life right now, and I still need affection and love through physical touch from my family members and friends, and just a pat on the back or a kiss on the cheek or someone holding your hand for a little while, comforting you. And in Slave to Sensation, we're dealing with a breed of being that's called the changelings. And so these changelings turn into an animal form. There are all kinds. There are animals of prey, there are birds, aquatic, there's, you know, wow, I just forgot what they're called. Not prey animals, but the opposite of that, like hunters, alpha animals, you know, the cats and wolves and things like that. And there is a great affection that happens between pack members to show their community and their love. And so we meet Lucas, who is he is the alpha of a jaguar pack, of a leopard pack, and he, as the alpha, shows his affection and appreciation and love for his pack members through touch. Even women he's not with, you know, like one of his sentinels, they have a wife and he hugs her and pets her hair sometimes to show thank you for doing this thing for the pack, thank you for this or that. And when you read it, you completely see like there's nothing about it that's sexual. On the flip side of it, the part that is sexual, they're very free with their animals need this release because they are half animal, and their animal isn't always looking for a mate. Sometimes they're just looking for physical release. And so they're very understanding and respectful of each other when there's unmated people who just need that release. So that was, you know, really forward thinking and fun to see. So on the other side of the changeling though, we have the Sai, the Sai that we meet in this book, her name is Sasha, and she is a daughter of a council member. The council is the ruling body of the Sai, and the Sai 100 years ago gave up all of their emotion, and they go through a project called the Silence, which when the child is like 5 or 6 years old, they go through this program and their emotion is trained out of them. Because they believe that with the powers they have, because the Sai have telekinetic powers, they have healing powers, they have teleportation skills, they have mind reading skills, they have all of these things, and they believe that emotion makes these people sloppy and messy and easily ruled. So about 100 years ago, they went through this program to lose emotion. Sasha is put in charge of a program where she's supposed to work with Lucas, work with the changelings to create this housing project together as a business venture. And now Lucas is getting involved in this project because changeling cubs, women, like young women, have been being kidnapped and murdered. And they have proof that it is a Sai who's doing this. Now the Sai don't believe that they can have serial killers. At least that's what they say, because they're not supposed to have any emotion. Well, there are sociopaths who don't have emotion and just want to see what pain looks like on people. And so Lucas is trying to get in tight with Sasha and then use her connection to the council to find out who's doing this. So that's the setup of this story. This is the beginning of a series that is all very tightly interconnected. This is a series I do suggest be read in order because you need to see how Sasha and Lucas bridge this gap between the two races before you'll be able to continue. So unlike IAD, where I tell people you can kind of enter this series at a couple different points, I don't believe you can enter this series at any other point but the beginning, because I don't see how you wouldn't be very confused by the dynamics and what's going on with everyone. So that's my opinion for this series. Especially where I'm at in the series, I'm currently reading book 11, and I'm actually a little irritated with book 11 because it's not mainly about the couple that I'm wanting to read about. It's about a bunch of the other couples we've like seen before, but it wasn't marketed that way. Like this isn't an anthology where we're checking in on people. But that's just because I would rather just have a sequel about those other people because I liked this previous couple so much, and they keep mentioning them, and I'm just like, okay, either take me away from this other couple or just give me a book about them because I want to see their future together. But anyway, that's just me being picky. The beginning of this series is fabulous, and I'm still loving it. I'm just currently a little like, okay, what you doing with this, Nailani Singh? But her world is so well built. There's so many dynamics, and we get to meet different packs. Like, we're close with the wolf pack called Snow Dancer, and we're close with the cat pack, which is called Dark River. And then we meet a rat pack at one point. We meet a lynx pack. Like, we get to meet all these different creatures, and I'm very excited about all of that. So it's a fascinating world, and I'm really loving getting into paranormal romance. You guys have been giving me great suggestions. I've been writing them down. I've been told Gina Showalter, and I've been told, man, a whole bunch. I can't remember right now because I don't have it written down, but I have a list, and I will be checking into it. I promise. I'll get to it. All right, the next one I want to talk about is A King So Cold by Ella Fields. This one, I don't have a copy of this one. I'm just stacking this back up again. This is a romantic fantasy about the queen of the winter court. Her name is Audra, and at the beginning of this story, she goes to stop the wedding of her husband to a different woman. Now, her husband's name is Raiden, and he's her husband, and he doesn't remember who he is. And what we get told is that he betrayed Audra somehow, and as punishment, his memory was wiped and he was banished from the kingdom. However, she gets word that he's remarrying, even though he doesn't know he's remarrying, and she can't have that. If she can't have a happy life with her husband, who it's his fault, he's not going to be happy with anyone else. And so she goes and drags him away from his wedding, throws his wife-to-be in prison. And here's the thing, this woman, she knows who the man is that she's getting married to. And so the queen is like, you're foolish because you know that I would never let him marry someone else. And so the king, Raiden, he doesn't know who he is. We find out that he is the prince of the summer court. I think he was the prince of the summer court before he married her. His land is kind of falling apart because his parents are both dead and her father is dead. And she decides that it's time for him to finally be put to death, because previously the two choices were she put him to death or she banished him without his memory. And we find out that he chose banishment without his memory over being killed. Makes sense. And she decides it is time for him to be killed so she can move on and marry someone else, because there is someone, his name is Zad, who is a high up member of her court, that it would be advantageous for her to marry him. They're already in a sexual relationship with each other as each other's paramours, and he is kind of waiting for her to make good on her promise to wed him and make him her king consort. But she can't while her current king is still alive, even though the other way you can get, like, you can get a divorce here if both of you say if you disavow each other. But because Raiden doesn't remember who he is, he can't make that disavow. Like, he can't divorce them from each other because he doesn't remember who he is. So she starts telling him their story, which is, you know, partially a love story, how the winter princess fell in love with the summer prince. And so we get to see their love story. But that's just the first half of this story. So I really, really liked this. This was dark. I thought the world was being very interestingly built. There's supposed to be a companion sequel to this coming out called, oh, I can't remember what it's called right now. My favorite parts of it, I can't really tell you about. You can check out my Goodreads review if you want to know a little bit more. But I will say that Zad is not insignificant. I won't tell you how. And Raiden has more up his sleeve than appears. But I really loved Audra. She's a powerful, strong queen. She tries to be very logical, except when it comes to Raiden, she's not the most logical. She has a lot of trauma in her past. Her father was not a good king. And her kingdom is being attacked on all sides. There's amazing fantasy creatures in here. There is dragon-like creatures. There is big flying birds. There's a lot about Audra that reminds me of Manon. She's a little more girly and princessy than Manon is, but there's a lot about her that reminds me of Manon. If you've read, you know, Kingdom of Glass, if you've read Throne of Glass, if you've read that series. But I loved it, and I loved finding another fantasy romance that had me so excited. Next, another book I want to put forward to you is Hello Stranger by Jade West. This was a book I didn't know it was out. I try to follow Jade West as best as I can because I really love the kind of kink books that she puts out. This one, not so much about the kink. There isn't really a kink going on. There's some rough sex between the couple, but it's not really a kink situation happening. But this is about Erica. Wait, no. Sorry. This is about Logan and Chloe. Logan is he takes care of patients who are at like end of life. Not quite hospice, but he's on like a floor of a hospital it's pretty intense. Chloe has a boyfriend who she's living with who doesn't really pay attention to her anymore. She's a nurse. And every day on the train, she sees this man who is Logan. And they're both always reading a book. And they'll always show the book to each other. And after weeks and weeks, they finally talk to each other. And they look forward to seeing each other every day on this train. And then, like, one day she forgets her bookmark. And it's a special bookmark because it belonged to a family member who's passed. And he brings it back to her the next day. And then, yeah, they have this growing thing, and they're like conversations they have together, like give her the confidence to leave her boyfriend and get a job at a new hospital. And when she shows up at this hospital, she is the nurse for the new doctor, who is Logan. And so Logan is very purposely keeping himself at arm's length. He has a mother who is close to the end of her life. She's a fantastic woman. Holy crap. She's actually based on a real woman. This mother of Logan is based off of Jade West's, a friend of hers who she lived with for a while, who is ill. There is a chapter of the book where Chloe is talking to Logan's mother, and that chapter was like written by this friend. Like it's her advice for how to live a happy life. But anyway, Logan, now knowing that he works with this woman, as well as he's trying to keep himself separate from relationships and complications because he doesn't want to drag someone into his life. He's also about 10 years older than her. I think she's like 26, 27, and he's 40. So there's an age gap, but it's one of those where like the age gap isn't the focus. So I don't consider a book an age gap trope just because there's an age gap, if that makes sense. To me, an age gap trope is when the age is an issue, and in this book, it's not an issue. There are other issues going on. And so she has to be the one brave enough to make a move because he is her he's her superior, he is older, and he has a lot of tough stuff happening in his life, so he refuses to impose. So she has to be the one to make a move. And the thing that was strange to me, that I loved this book so much, because both of these people are betas. Like, that's the thing. Like, she is a very timid, demure woman, and Logan is very reserved and quiet and holds back. So they're both betas. And so it was interesting to watch a book about two people who like are not going to make the first move and watch them like make moves. And yeah, so this book, again, you could check out my Goodreads review for this one. There is triggers for grief, loss of a parent, terminal illness. Yeah, it was rough. Like I don't consider this a feel-good book, but it made me feel good and made me hurt. Like, as Ron Weasley would say, you're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it. And like, I'm just more and more impressed with Jade West the more I read. Some of her earliest books, which again, I love her kink stories. Like, I love them. The more and more I read of her, the more sophisticated she gets and the deeper her books are for me. Like, her last 3 books that I've read by her have all made me cry and just wiped me out. Like, they've just wiped me out. So yeah, this is intense and not for the faint of heart, but I loved it. And I would have never read this book if it didn't have Jade West's name on it. But at this point, I've read every book she's written except for a sex slave one of hers, which I haven't been in the mood to read yet. But I've read everything she's written, and I am always impressed. All right, lightening it up a little bit. I read The Pool Boy by Nikki Sloan. This is book 2 in her Nashville Neighborhood series. There are, companion standalones. The first one was The Doctor, which was an age gap ex's dad book. So think Your Dad Will Do, except she's young, even younger. This book was an older woman, younger man trope. It's also the younger man has been pining for a few years. So Erica is almost 40. She was married for almost 20 years, and she found her husband cheating on her with his boss, who's a man. And she just wants to reset her life. So she works for a music label. Actually, again, this is in Nashville. And she gets herself a boob job. She gets herself healthier. She works out. She is feeling fit and hot and great, but she hasn't got back out on the dating market yet. So she's working up to doing that. She has a best friend. Her best friend's son, his name is Troy, and he's been cleaning her pool. Troy is about 23, 24. So he's graduated college. And he secretly sings at bars at night, and he is a musician, and he has a beautiful voice. And anyway, one day Erica takes a day off from work because she's having a rough day and decides to go naked sunbathing at home. So she falls asleep with like her earbuds in, forgetting that today is the day that Troy comes to clean the pool. And so he isn't even looking at her either. He's cleaning the pool, and then she notices and tries to sneak away because she's naked. And he sees her, and they end up having this super hot scene where neither of them touches each other, but they both get off for each other. And then they're like, oh my God, this is never going to happen again. You're my best friend's son. And he's like, actually, I've had a thing for you for the last 5 years since I was 19. And I would see how your husband didn't treat you right. And I just wanted to make myself known, but you were married, all these things come out. And then also she then goes to a bar one night with her friends, and he's there singing at open mic. And she's like, holy crap, your voice is amazing. I want to make you famous. And it was so fun. I can count on one hand how many books I've read with an older woman, younger man. And it's so interesting that so many of the hangups are the same, especially if it's one where I'm your mom's or dad's best friend, or stepdad or something like that. There's so many of the things are the same of we're at different points in life. Are you going to want to have a family by the time? Are you still going to want a family after you already had one? Will you trust loving again? Are you going to be insecure? But then there was also some things that were so different. And yeah, Troy was great. Also, the reaction, because when it's a older, when it's dad's best friend, the dad usually gets physical, right? And he's going to punch the guy who, how dare you screw my daughter, things like that. Whereas with this one, it was very catty, right? Because when her best friend finds out, as is inevitable, I wouldn't consider that a spoiler for this kind of thing, she's so cruel with her words instead of, oh my gosh, I'm going to punch you. And I think that it's even harder for women to lose a friend because I feel like it's harder for us to have one like that. So I found it very moving. And Nikki Sloan, she rides this line for me of making the sexiest stories with so much heart. And I love that about her. I love it. So I really encourage this. Nikki Sloan's books aren't on KU. Sometimes she'll have them on sale, but generally I pay for them because I always want a Nikki Sloan book. Like I will read it. I have not read one where I haven't liked it. So then I want to talk about Love Unexpected by QB Tyler. So heads up of this, if you read my reading wrap-up from yesterday, you'll know that I read a lot of step-parent romances, step-brother romances, step-parent romance, and even some incest. Like I was reading Taboo Age Gaps. And out of all the ones I read, this was my favorite. I hadn't read a QB Tyler book before. I read a couple of them this week. And this one is about Dominic and Stacia. This is a interracial relationship. Dominic has been married to Stacia's mom for the last 10 years, since she was 7. She had a crush on him when he was 7, when he was her teacher, and then he became the school principal, and he meets her mom and marries her mom. And so he's her stepdad for the last 10 years. And then her mother dies in a car accident. And this is like really tough too, because Dominic, he actually lost a wife before Stacia's mom, because he was married really young. So he was married at like 22. He married his high school sweetheart and they partied a lot together, and she actually died in like a drunk driving accident that she caused, which caused him to like clean up his life and get it straight. And then at 30, he met Stacia's mom and married her, and then she dies in a car accident as well. So Dominic's holding a lot of like other issues besides the fact that Stacia doesn't have anyone else. She has her grandparents, but they live a little ways away. So she's going to stay living with him for the rest of her senior year, which there isn't much of it left. And now like her feelings that she was having for him are just really like blowing up. And so they had a really contentious relationship. And on her part, it was all because she was really attracted to him and then hated that he was her stepdad. And for him, in the last couple years, it had really been, he was like attracted to her, but like he loved his wife, but he could tell that like she was attracted to him. So he's trying to keep that space and like be disciplinarian and, you know, all these things. And then they're grieving together. It was honestly like really sweet in a lot of ways. Like I like these books because they're usually super steamy. I love the forbidden fruit aspect of stepfather romances, and I really love that teasing aspect where you're teasing each other without even knowing it. And they actually own like a lake house, and so they take a weekend away, just the two of them. Two of her friends are supposed to come with, and they get the flu, and so it's just her and her stepdad. And while they're away, they kind of give over to their feelings, and then they're like, well, when we go back to our hometown, we like can't continue this. And then there's another element to this where Stacia has never met her father, but Dominic knows who her dad is because his wife told him about him. And he shows up at her graduation, or it might have been the funeral. I think he shows up first at her mom's funeral, and he is entrenched with the mafia a little bit, and that's part of the reason from his side why he never reached out. It's part of the reason why Stacia's mom kind of like ran away from him, because since they weren't going to be married, he was like, well, then it's best if I'm not involved at all, because people would try to use you against me. So if you just disappear. But it's not the same like romantic aspect where it's like, I'm trying to keep you safe. It was like, we're not going to work out, so it's best if I don't exist, because otherwise people will try to use you against me. And he kind of makes himself known again. And obviously he's not going to be super okay with this adult spending time with his daughter, but his daughter doesn't feel like he has a say in anything because he doesn't even know them, and is trying to take over as being her father when she has one, even though she wants to sleep with him. I don't know, it's feelings. It's great. QB Tyler wrote a very compelling. I really liked that one and another of her books. Last one I want to bring up is All Things Burn by Jody Slaughter. Wow, this one was fun. This one I considered a romantic suspense because you'll see when I explain the book. But I heard about this one. I'd been seeing it on KU, but I thought it was more of a thriller, and so I wasn't really interested in it. This is another interracial couple. This is a black woman and a white Irish American who is a hitman. And we have our character, Hallie, who is being stalked by an ex-boyfriend. He is getting increasingly threatening to her. He's sending her pictures of her family members. Her family members are mentioning that he has come to see them. He is sending her flowers. He sends her jewelry. He is stalking her. And he has a lot of money and connections with the mafia. She doesn't know that right now, but it becomes really obvious to us soon. And she's tried to get a restraining order, but nothing that he's done is going to be enough. And also the way that he's being aggressive, it's one of those cases where like a restraining order only helps if the person listens to it. And so she isn't able to get a restraining order. And so one of her cousins, who does a little bit of like dirty work on the side, he has this number of a hitman, and you can only get this number by having it like referred to you. And so that's Callum. And so she calls Callum and asks him to do this hit for her. And he doesn't tell her his name in the beginning. He's like, you don't need to know my name, but meet me here because I need to see what you look like and make sure this isn't a trick and all these things. And so they meet up, and they both are instantly hot for each other, just instantly. And so even though Callum has 3 rules, you know, as so many do, he like doesn't let anyone stay over at his place. He doesn't sleep with clients, and he doesn't like he doesn't try to know more, but he doesn't let them know anything about him. And he starts breaking those rules left, right, and center with Hallie. Like, he's finding reasons to spend more time with her. He says, oh, I need you to come on a stakeout mission with me to make sure that I get the right person and all these things. And just feelings start. And I really like how it makes, because he's not a secret good guy, right? This is a full-on anti-hero. He does hits for the mob when they ask him to. He kills people for money. And as long as it isn't, you know, it's not for petty jealousy, and it's not children. Like, those are his main rules. He's like, I'm not going to kill anyone for you because they keyed your car. Like, I want there to be reasons. But also, it's not like he has super high standards either. Like, he does this for money. And Hallie, she really has to come to grips with, like, am I okay with being with someone who does that? And what does that mean? And so we get to see kind of them both morally meet in the middle, but more so she changes how she thinks about things. And it's funny too, because she's a lawyer who works with battered women. So she knows that the guy stalking her is going to escalate, and she doesn't want to become a statistic. So I found that to be really powerful. So yeah, and this one's on KU, and it's great. And I'm very excited to read more Jodie Slaughter because it was the perfect mix. Oh, I should talk about this. Like, the sex in this, super steamy. The storyline, very compelling. That's why I put it in romantic suspense, because there is that going on. Like, they are planning to murder, and there is multiple murders that happen in this book that aren't gratuitously shown, but they are part of the plot. And so there is more to this plot than just the romance, but the romance is the main thing. The sex is fantastic. The character connection is awesome. And I feel like it's a story where there's more of there's more of things explained than just zeroed in on our people. And I like that. I like a good mix of both. So I highly suggest checking this one out. So yeah, those are my notable books of the month. Again, if you want to know the full list of books that I've read, make sure you check out my playlist with my weekly wrap-ups in it. I'm very excited for September. I've already got a couple of my reads for my TBR. So excited. We did read, I didn't mention this at the top of it, but we did read The Beast of Bestwick was our group read. We did a live show for this. It was really fun. I had a great time reading this book. It's not my favorite historical romance I've ever read, but it was really interesting. And the hero was great. Like, I really, really enjoyed this. It was a very good Beauty and the Beast retelling of, like, our hero has actually been through some serious trauma, and he's a grumpy hero, and he has a lot of damage. And I like watching that stuff get worked on. We're reading The Secret for September. There'll be a live show for that on September 20th. And then For Taboo Book Club, I can say this now because this will have been announced already. We're going to be reading Like Butterflies, I think, by Daniel James and Kay Webster, and we're going to be reading The Wild by Kay Webster, which I actually read this month. But our Taboo Book Club is going to be doing incest in September, so I'm going to reread that again, and it'll be fun. So yeah, that is everything I have to say about for August. August was a fun month. I'm excited for September. I'm excited for sweater weather and pumpkin spice lattes and reading some cozy books, and I'm super excited. So thank you so much for watching. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye.